Hello and welcome back to Broadside Gaming with me, Zug, and today we're going to be talking a bit more about crafting and how to avoid the RNG pitfalls when upgrading weapons and curios. Mostly weapons though, curios not so much. So what are the pitfalls? So when you're upgrading weapons, it's not only the modifier you're looking for. For example, take this Agrippina Mark 7 shotgun. It's rolled pretty well across the board. It's all relatively equal. So the highest rating you can get is 380, and the highest modifier in any of these bars can be 80%. So what you want is to get as close to 380 as you can with all of these modifiers being fairly equal. But that's not always possible. So you kind of have to choose when you're upgrading a weapon, not only to look at this number, but to figure out which one of these stats you're okay with having the least in, as it's a game of balancing with this. So what modifier would you generally want to get rid of? Well, mobility, basically. Mobility really doesn't matter. Like, at all. It's the least impactful modifier. So when you're rolling up a weapon, let's take one of these lower ones. So this is a good example. This would have been a pretty decent weapon if these two stats were swapped. But because stability is so low, this is almost unusable. Because I can't actually look at it from this screen, which is just pointless. So let's have a look. So you can go over to weapon. If you don't know this, you can inspect a weapon by pressing V. And it will give you a breakdown of what everything does. With stability, it basically ruins the weapon because of the recoil, the hip fire movement, the aim down sights, the spread, and the sway. And because this is so low, well, this weapon won't hit very much. But with mobility, it doesn't really affect that much. So yes, dodge limit and dodge distance, but most of those have now been triaged in the talent trees. You don't really need it. Like, you wouldn't want to get rid of collateral because that is your weapon stagger, which is quite important, and it's also triggered off of quite a lot of blessings. You definitely don't want to get rid of ammo, although ammo can be lowered slightly, but most of the time you won't want to, especially as a veteran. Stability is basically your ability to hit anything. Damage, though, damage can be slightly lower because the percentages of how it works it out isn't actually that vast. So let's take this one with an 80% damage modifier, the best modifier it can have on the gun. And then we'll look at something with a 63% damage modifier on it. So as you can see, it's 103, 103. And we'll take a look again at the 80% one, 107. So try not to be fooled by the damage modifier, as it doesn't actually do as much as you think it does. It's going to be mostly collateral, stability, and your ammo reserves. Say on like a different gun, it's stopping power on this one. And then you can go down and just check out the other ones. Some of them will have like finesse, or that's mostly for melee weapons though. But as you can see, cleave damage, finesse, cleave targets. The difference between the damage modifier doesn't make that much of an impact, but your cleave, finesse, and cleave damage will. And this is one of the big problems with the loot system in this game. It doesn't really reward you for grinding. It's all just RNG, or random number generation. It's completely random whether you will get a well-rolled weapon. You just have to keep putting the penny in the slot until you find one. And even then you could get a perfectly rolled modifier, but then the perks and blessings might be absolutely hammered. So if we take just one of these, again, would have been a good weapon. Penetration's high. Nice. Finesse is high. Damage is high. But mobility has rolled at 80%, and the special shredder has rolled down to 59. It's not unusable, but it isn't optimal. And this is the little trap that they'll get you into. So this, the 379, it's rolled very high, and it's actually not rolled badly. We can take the hit to the damage modifier because it doesn't matter too much. The damage modifier can always be improved upon with perks and blessings and your talent choices. But if these three at the bottom are ruined, there's not much you can do about it. So these are just little pitfalls you can get yourself into. Again, mobility's rolled at 80%, but the critical bonus has rolled down to 55. So this game is pushing you into quantity to find the quality. You will end up spending most of your cash buying blank weapons like this in the hopes of being able to roll up a decent weapon. And in the crafting video, I spoke about how and where to find weapons. But when it comes down to being able to get something decent, like even my best power sword hasn't rolled up to the maximum. But it's rolled well enough. As you can see, mobility here is the dump stat, which I've referred to in other videos. The dump stat has rolled how I want it, which makes all of these very, very useful. And again, you can modify this damage with your perks and blessings. The other ones, not so much. Like, well, you can modify the cleave on this with like Wrath, but not all weapons have that ability to fix a stat with a blessing. So it's just something you need to look out for when you are rolling them, because it's not just perks and blessings that you're trying to balance. You also have to try to balance all of your modifiers so that they're not handicapping you in any sort of way. But each weapon is slightly different, so I can't give you a blank sort of this is how you do it stamp for everything. For example, the Hellbore gun here, this doesn't have mobility on it. All of the stats are very, very useful. So what would we dump out? Well, there is no real dump stat on this. You just possibly want damage to be slightly lower and possibly ammo, because you need the charge rate, you need the stability, and you need the stopping power. That's what's going to give you the consistent damage. And you can make up for the ammo with, say, the Shock Trooper talent, which gives every crit, possibly every crit, doesn't consume ammo. And again, we've got a different setup on the Manticore plasma gun. I would actually say this is probably rolled how I would want it. The ammo is low, because all you'd have to do for that is you just have to be slightly faster on picking up ammo. It doesn't ruin the gun because your stopping power, your charge rate, and your thermal resistances are very high. It just makes this game slightly more annoying. As, say, Vermintide, you'd find a red quality weapon and you'd know, right, I can roll this and it's going to be perfect. And there's no thinking I have to do after that at all, apart from what breakpoints I need for the build. By Vermintide, they've added it. Sorry, Darktide, they've added in this slightly more annoying system. Say slightly, I mean incredibly. But it's the system we've got. So until they revamp it, this is what we have to work with. As you can see here, I would prefer if mobility was lower and stability was higher, but you work with what you got. But you've also got to keep in mind that even a lower ranked weapon, say this, it doesn't have the super correct perks, the perfect blessings. It will still work fairly well in any difficulty. You don't have to have the most perfect roll of everything to be able to use a weapon and have fun with it. So, you know, you may want 4-star blessings and 4-star perks, but sometimes it's just not possible with how a weapon's rolled. So you're quite okay to use a weapon that's, say, rolled not amazingly well, and you can use it. Just don't get caught into the thinking that it has to be 380. Everything has to be absolutely perfect or it won't work. There are very few people in this game who have completely meta rolled weapons. I would say almost nobody does. Like the amount of hours I've put into this game, making guides, playing it, doing all this stuff. You know, I don't have that sort of stuff, and I've put a lot of time into this game. So that's generally how to avoid the pitfalls of modifiers, and also how to change your thinking of the modifiers overall. This isn't be all and end all. If you have a weapon that's kind of how you want it, or more or less how a guide is saying you should try and use it, it'll be fine. It doesn't matter if the blessing's not a tier 4, if it's a tier 3, it will still work. So I hope this has helped, folks. This is more of a general sort of overview of how to look at it, really. And I hope it helps. And if it has, you know, please like, subscribe, hit the little bell for notifications. It really does help us out. Until the next video, take it easy, and I will see you later.